That's right, we're back on the Riot MMO. Desperately begging, coping, shitting, crying, and screaming, hoping that they do something. That's at least a 6 out of 10. How many of you, I'm going to be honest with you, how many of you think that the Riot MMO is going to be a banger when it releases 95 years from now? What do you think the chances of the Riot MMO being good are? Nope, me, I do, overly censored and slop, nope. So I'm seeing some yeses, right? And I cannot blame you for saying yes, because Riot, at least as a company, has made some good stuff. Not all of it's been good. Riot Forge shut down, but some of the single-player games they made were actually pretty good. They were pretty comfy to play. My concern with the Riot MMO is that they're not going to innovate. That we're going to get the same gameplay loop that we've been looking at for the last 2 decades. The Riot MMO, I think, and this is, I'm not saying this because I think it's going to be good. I'm saying this because it's all we have left. The Riot MMO, I think, has the best chance of succeeding in the future. Not because it's going to be amazing, but because it's just going to be better than the slop we've currently got. That's coming out. Did you steal this guy's video? Yes, we all just, standing on camera behind a green screen, we all just steal from each other. That's how this works, kid. Did you expect originality on YouTube? What the fuck? No, we just steal from each other. That's how this works. Now, I quite like Necrot. I'm going to be honest with you. I used to watch his lore videos about League of Legends when I was a filthy League of Legends player. But then I had sex, so I had to stop playing League of Legends. It just happens, Things happen in your life. If you felt the inside of a vagina at least once in your life, you stop playing League of Legends. That's just how it works. And for those of you who felt the inside of a vagina and still play League of Legends, I got some bad news for you. You were probably inside a man. We can help the Riot MMO, apparently. Let's find out how.
While since we talked about Riot's MMO. It's been a month. Yeah, we can do it again. So, the last time we talked about Riot's MMO, we learned that there was no way they were going to cancel it. But better yet, we learned it is Riot's goal to push it out before 2030. Which is quite the exciting news.
I think he misread that. There's got to be a 0 on the end of that.
Means it is happening in our lifetimes. But there is also another interesting thing that happened. This year, as I've been traveling around different events, with there being a real chance I might pop up at the Paris Open for TFT, I get a chance to meet totally random devs from all across Riot Games. And one day, purely by chance, I got to meet some of the people from the MMO team. Now let me tell you, no matter what you ask them, they are good. They know their NDA is valued above gold. Their hands would probably be chopped off should they even flinch. And so, their will was iron, their resolve unbreakable. You can ask them the simplest question, and they always reply, yeah, I wish I could tell you. In fact, they reply this so often, there is no way there won't be an NPC called I wish I could tell you or something like that. But during our conversation, I learned about a really cool thing. It turns out the MMO team does watch any kind of content that comes out about the Riot MMO. And when people nerd out about MMOs and the universe of Runeterra, it almost functions like a battery for the team. And it always kickstarts a lot of excitement and productivity. In fact, during that conversation, there is a really cool thing that popped up. I told them I always wanted to make one more MMO video where I talked about all the cool places I wanted to see in the game. After which, with their emotionless faces as to not give any hints, in complete silence, they looked at each other and they said, we'd like to see that. And so today we are literally saving Riot's MMO, because we are continuing our journey into Runeterra, and we are also raising the productivity of the devs. Which also means I would like to ask for one more thing. There is a good chance the devs will read some of the comments, so if you know some places you'd like to see in the MMO, now.
So that's a good sign. I do like that the devs don't want to block out comments and shit. Which, I mean, fuck, I think the chat's going to be a mess in this game. I think they're not going to allow people to say what they really think, and if you say something mean or upsetting, just like in League, you're going to get banned because you told someone, I hope you get COVID and die, which is not even like, Jesus, that's barely baseline. I really want a game, an MMORPG that allows you to be like as toxic as fuck to each other, because honestly, I prefer my MMO players to tell me what they really think, instead of finding these weird fucking ways around these things, and then they still get banned. Honestly, we need to bring the toxicity back into MMOs. I really, really, really prefer when MMOs, and I'm going to say this now, some of the best parts of old MMORPGs, like WoW Vanilla, Burning Crusade, old school RuneScape, any of the old MMORPGs, they always had these piece of shit players in them who were complete villains to the rest of the server. And as annoying or as upsetting as those players were, you should say thank you to them. Because after that event has happened, after something has occurred with those players, they gave you a memory. They gave you the most valuable thing. Whether the server came together to beat the shit out of that person, or whether that person just continually beat the shit out of everyone in the game and made themselves a legend, I think that makes part of an MMORPG special. Do proximity chat, but it's TTS AI, and they can sell voice packs. Oh god. Oh god, don't give them ideas, Hollowed Out. They'll do that. They will do that.
Now's your chance. And so, in this video, we are gonna talk about interesting places around Runeterra, which most people will not know about. Because sure, it is one thing to see the capital cities of the regions which everyone knows about, or even some of the other cool places which are badass, but rather than that, I'd like to focus on the unconventional places.
You're weird about positivity. Yes, I am. Do you know why? Because most of the time, everyone's trying to have positivity with no negativity. There's nothing wrong with positivity. There's nothing wrong with being nice to people. There's something wrong when you don't get the other side of that, where everyone just starts pretending to be toxically positive to each other to get good boy points in an MMO. If you don't have the lows, you never know how good the highs are. You need both. I love seeing people who become a pillar of the community. I'm not gonna lie. During Wrath of the Lich King, here, I'll tell you a story. During Wrath of the Lich King, I was part of a guild that was run by a guy, ironically, whose name was Benji. He played a warrior. He led a guild. He was one of the best guild leaders I ever had. He was positive. He was always helpful. He was fun to be around. He was charismatic. And do you know what we found out one day from his girlfriend? It wasn't on Tichondrius. No, it wasn't on Tichondrius. It was on an EU server. One day, his girlfriend logged into his character. Benji on my server, not Swole Benji, another Benji. He played a human warrior. He led our guild. He was incredibly positive. He was fun to be around, but it wasn't fake positivity. This guy was genuinely a great person to be around. He was always supportive. He helped players whenever he could. He never kicked the dog shit members of our guild. And guess what? He was so fucking charismatic that somehow he got our shittiest players to be good enough that we could run Ulduar without any problems, without any failures, right? One day, he disappeared for like 2 weeks, and everyone was wondering where he was. Then his girlfriend logged in to his character, and we all just started whispering. We were like, yo, where you been, man? We missed you. And she just posted a message in the guild chat saying, hey guys, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Benji has died of leukemia. He's been hospitalized for months. He told no one. He didn't even tell me until I started to see what the chemo was doing to him. Then he had to come out and said he didn't want anyone to know. He just wanted everyone to have a great time. He was one of the best guild leaders I ever had. And he was so fucking positive. He was great. And we all loved him. Because he wasn't a fake piece of shit. He was an amazing person to be around. And we lost that man. And we didn't do something stupid like hold an in-game funeral for him or anything like that. But we did get together and all email this one email that her girlfriend had given us, so that those things could be printed out and put in his grave with him. And we all did it. Every single member of that guild did it. And he was amazing. I will always remember that man. So I love the positivity. But I also remember all the villains I had to deal with in World of Warcraft. And guess what? There are some fucking rogues in Stranglethorn Vale that always got the better of me. And I never got the better of them. But that feeling they gave me, that fucking heart-pounding feeling, that adrenaline through my system, trying to deal with one of them, the frustration they made me feel, that was also a memory. And the only reason, like one of the reasons I remember how good Benji was because I remember what a little fucking shit some of those rogues were. You can't have the highest highs without the lowest lows.
These are places that are very hard to find anywhere. They are not in the game, and usually they are not even shown on the map. And we only know about their existence from all the cool niche stories. Which means there is a good chance Riot might miss out on these places as they are building the game. And so, let's fix the game. Starting with the first place I would like to see, which are the ruins of the marketplace of Narimazeth. Yep, I told you these would be unconventional places. So Narimazeth is, or was, a city in Shurima. In fact, many years ago, it used to be the first ever capital of the Shuriman deserts. This is where, after...
For someone who knows a lot about League lore, I've never heard of Narimazeth. This is interesting.
Separating from Dargon, the first ever Shuriman started using the first ever Sundisk to create the first ever Ascended. Now, because they were new at this, it didn't really work out. Instead of the Ascended, they created a lot of abominations. And so, they built the Sundisk again, much bigger this time, and they moved it to the very center of the Shuriman Desert, which created the capital city of the Shuriman Empire. The thing is, Narimazeth is where Xerath was born, with Xerath
By the way, Xerath did nothing wrong.
Eventually betraying Emperor Azir and destroying the entire Shuriman Empire. And so, in an act of revenge, the remaining Ascended, without their glorious Emperor, marched onto Narimazeth, and they burned the entire place to ash, together with its people for some reason. All of that is hinted in the story called Twilight of the Gods, but there is also a whole separate story about it in the first ever lore book. Anyway, in Legends of Runeterra, we learned that many years later, after Xerath returned in his arcane form, he turned the ruins of his former homeland into...
Xerath killed the Black Egyptian Empire. Why are you just repeating what I said, Filter?
his new base. In fact, his goal in the current...
Hey, look, if I was a slave my entire fucking life, and then the guy who's technically my brother was just like, Lamau, I'm not releasing you until the last fucking second, I would have also crashed out. That man had every reason to crash out. Every fucking reason under the sun. Didn't he rashly cause Shurima's fall? No. Azir did. He is just a victim of circumstance.
Day is to bring back the original Sundisk, so that he can continue channeling the celestial power. However, once Riot totally turns this place into a proper raid, where we totally get to fight Xerath as a raid boss, there is a place in here that shouldn't be missed. You see, the Twilight of the Gods is a story that describes the beginning of the end of the Darkin. It was the moment the aspect of Twilight came to Shurima, specifically to Narimazeth, and using the Chalikar, which is the blade that Sivir is currently...
By the way, I fucking hate that character. I fucking hate Zoe so much. It's not even her kit. It's none of what she does in game. I just hate that there's a child running around like that. I don't know what it is. It sets me off. It's one of the reasons I dislike Annie as well. It just feels weird. It just feels real weird that a character like that exists in a game like this. The kind of comments I see about it all the time are really fucking creepy. Or at least the comments I used to see about it.
Wielding. The aspect of Twilight used the power of the moon to not only seal the first Darkin inside the Chalikar, with the power being so great those Darkin were instantly cleansed, but after this, with the help of the Lunari, she also taught mortals how to seal the Darkin inside their own weapons. The thing is, this really cool lore moment happens in the former marketplace of Narimazeth, and this is how the story describes it. The space had not been designed as an amphitheater. It had served as Narimazeth's marketplace, but the Nari slaves had carved it from the desert's embrace, and his magic has shaped it with heat so intense it vitrified the sand. Now it was an arena of blown glass, a caldera of smoky black, sea green, and luminous iridescence. Its surface captured the soft moonlight and reflected it back in floating veils of silver. And so, inside the ruins of Narimazeth, there should be the place that started the end of the Darkin.
But Zoe is over 1,000 years old, okay?
For fuck's sakes. I fucking hate that meme so much. Everyone's just right. Like, I have seen so many fucking games where some guy in mid picks Zoe, and it's just like 9 people posting fucking comments in the chat going, ooh, Cunny. And I'm sitting there playing Brom support, and I'm like, this is not right. You people are fucking sick. God, oh man, it gets so fucking weird. And those are the people that don't get banned. But if you tell those other 9 people to go fucking kill themselves, then you're the bad person. Chat moderation was a mistake.
Should look like a giant amphitheater of glass, which was burned with the magic of the Ascended. But now, moving on to the second place of this list. We are actually not moving that far away from Shurima, because next, let's have a look at the 10th city of the Prophet. This place was described in the story The Feast of the Prophet, which is a story that follows Mir, a Noxian who struck an officer, and as a result, Noxus wanted him dead, which is why Mir started running south. Eventually, he successfully crossed over into Shurima, and his only way to escape was going further down. He described the place where he was as a place that turns grey. This means that in this story, Mir is somewhere in this general area. It should be north of Ikathia, somewhere in a mountainy area. And funnily enough, even though this is not the place I want to focus on, this story also revealed another interesting area, because Mir wanted to travel to the southernmost point of the Ikathian Peninsula. He believed that that place had to have some kind of a smuggler's port, or possibly a stop-off for the fishing ships of Bilgewater. He was hoping to catch a ship there which would give him a new life somewhere on the Serpent Isles. So dear MMO devs, if you're interested in this, you can put something cool to the very tip of Ikathia. But again, the place I want to show you is north of Ikathia. Here, beyond an outcropping of rock.
Honestly, you know what I think the entirety of Ikathia should be in-game? I think it should be just one giant fucking raid. I think there should be like, you know Hyjal? How Hyjal was? Where the entire zone is a raid? I think that would be peak. That a whole area is so fucking dangerous that you have to go there as a raid to get anywhere.
Rocks. There was a hole. That's actually how Mir described it. And this hole went far beneath the sands of Shurima. He witnessed cultists throw livestock into the hole, sometimes each other into a hole, sometimes themselves into the hole. And every time something fell in, the hole got bigger. And
sounds like my ex.
At this point, it was as big as the city Nashrame. And right next to this hole, there was the 10th city of the Prophet, which is a place full of weird cultists who got twisted by the Void, who were also following the guidance of Malzahar, the Void Prophet who would bring the Void upon this world. The one cool thing is how the story describes the cultists who lived here. Outside of their forms being totally corrupted, their mind had been completely blank. And they got angry at you for thinking, because your thoughts were way too loud. And so spoiler alert, because Mir was thinking, it was really
raid level zones would make the Blizz form baby screech so loud. That's why I want it to happen, Dubba. I want to see people getting fucking upset about it. I want to see people throwing temper tantrums about it. It would be so funny. Oh my god, I'm a bad person because I'm just in it to watch people get upset.
hard for him to hide among the cultists as he was trying to travel south, and so Mir was thrown into the hole. And so, Riot, if we get the chance to explore the Shuriman deserts in the MMO, there better be a really big hole east of Shurima, surrounded by some really weird cultists. But enough talking about sands, now let's move into the mainland. So, our next place comes from the story called Finishing Sotes. This is a really awesome story about the performance of a theater. Here, a group was practicing a play about death. That's right, we're talking about Kindred. The thing is, that play which they were practicing turned out to be cursed. It was written by the legendary Sotes. Think of it like a Shakespeare of Runeterra, only she was known around Demacia. And on her deathbed, she wrote the Kindred fables. The issue is, death had claimed her before she was able to finish it. And in fact, the final scene of that play was written as she was passing away, meaning it is filled with what Sotes saw, which would be references.
So you see all of this world building. This could be really, really fucking good, or it's going to be incredibly disappointing when none of this shows up in the MMO. Right? So, like, I hope that no one tells you about these stories and that there's not these massive text dump expositions, but it tells you the story through visual kind of storytelling, where it's a case of show don't tell. I don't want to be told the story. I want to be some random nameless nobody stumbling through these areas trying to piece together what the fuck happened. That's what I think. I think that's peak storytelling. I hate it when it's like, you talk to an NPC and he's like, long ago, and then like 5 hours later he's done talking and you just want to fucking die. I prefer it if it were like Dragon Stand, make most of the zone content raid level but include small side paths that are soloable. Maybe there's a safe path through there or something. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot they can do, but I'm really concerned that the Riot MMO is going to attempt to be WoW Classic when it needs to be something completely new. That's what I need it to be. You pointed out being more of the same, but perfectioning a formula doesn't. Sometimes it actually works, and it's what people been doing for a while. Yes, it could work. This is the thing: it could work. But I'm very concerned. First, about how they monetize it. Second, about whether they have the ability to execute on all the story and lore that they're building up for years. And third, are they going to be able to make it a big enough thing with like, I'm sorry, but MMOs are based on gameplay, right? Gameplay needs to be first, and gameplay needs to be unique and memorable and novel. And if it can't do that and it's just a rehashing of another game, then you're in trouble. Think about it this way. If you went back and you played Rift and World of Warcraft never existed, you would think that Rift was an amazing MMORPG. But the problem is, all they did was copy-paste everything WoW did. And then touted themselves as a WoW killer. And then died. And now they're in maintenance mode, keep on being swapped between different people owning it. And it's a mess. No point in trying to get a new audience into MMOs. They're all playing Fortnite. That's exactly why there's a point in getting a new audience into MMOs, Cyro. But that's also why you can't rely on gameplay mechanics that are over 20 years old. There are no old MMORPGs that are dragging in like teenagers and 20-year-olds into poor life choices because the poor life choices they're making are Valorant. It's fucking Fortnite. Back in our day, it was World of Warcraft. That was the game that, was the best form of contraception you could ever get. If Fortnite or Roblox made an MMO, it'd be over. I don't think Roblox could pull off an MMO because they're based on UGC, which is user-generated content, but if Fortnite wanted to go out of its way to try and make an MMO, they could probably make it work. Make it something like Destiny, but better. They could probably make it work.
To the real afterlife. That part of the play is called The Lamps in the Orchard. And so, to rake in some mad money, the head of the theater located in Knockmerge wanted to finish the play. Specifically, we know that this place is in Olderburg. And we know where that place is thanks to Garen's novella. Basically, it is halfway between Demacia and Noxus. And there, in Olderburg, we had the Murmurs Round. This is a theater that was formed around towering flagstones that formed a circle. At first, rituals were performed here, with every performer and singer carving their sigils into these stones, which turned them into a hallowed ground. But eventually, it also became the Olderburg Theater. Now, at the end of this story, we learned that nobody can finish Sotes' work, because since that final part was written in half-death, to play that story would be to evoke death itself. And so, at the end of that story...
That sounds like a raid. Hey, remember how good Karazhan was? With all the play shit going on? That what he's talking about there sounds like some invoking of a ritual to invoke death, so that you could try and fight a version of them. That could be really, really good. Whenever I join a guild in an MMO, people are always twice my age. You can't say that, Lucid State of Mind, because now we know that you're at least 50 years old. You just told us your age, and you don't realize it. Everyone talks about youngsters, which isn't per se wrong, but even the current and even older audience are leaving MMOs, so let's start not being shit, getting them back and go from there. Yeah, no, you're right, Barando. But this is the thing, is if you can make a good enough gameplay loop, I think it becomes agnostic to the age of the player, right? How many people picked up, in the 90s, how many 30-year-olds probably picked up a game like Dragon Age Origins and enjoyed themselves? Alongside a bunch of teenagers. Quite a few. Because it was just a good game. With a good story attached to it. Do you know how many people played Command and Conquer Generals? Who were teenagers, but also people who were like fucking 45? Make the gameplay good enough, and everyone will want to play it. Just please don't make it TikTok the MMO. Please don't do that. That's all I'm asking. I don't have the APM to keep up with these fucking ADHD kids who build the fucking Eiffel Tower every time they hear a gunshot in the distance. Please don't do that.
Everyone dies as they summon Kindred onto themselves. But regardless, as we explore the lands around Knockmerge between Noxus and Demacia, just know that there should be the Murmurs Round, which is a theater with stone pillars, which also served as the ritual ground of Kindred.
Also, sorry, Lord Footner, but you're a bro. Everyone's a bro online. I'm going to say this now. I've said this before. The safest thing you can do is assume that every single person you're playing with in an MMORPG is a fat, hairy trucker who's picking lint out of his belly button. And I'll tell you why. Because I had a friend who got himself an online girlfriend in World of Warcraft. And he was slowly falling in love with this person until one day they got in voice chat. And it did actually turn out to be a fat, hairy trucker who was like semi-grooming him. It was really, really funny. We ragged on him for fucking months about that. Holy shit. He was devastated. And all that guy said was hello in the voice chat. And that was it. It was over. And then he said to him, no, but I'm still a girl in the game. It's okay. It's okay. That guy never recovered. Never trusted anyone ever again.
Now, still staying near a dark topic, next we have to talk about Veigar's Tower, which was revealed in the story called The True and Ghastly Tale of the Beast of Bolahem Tower, which kinda hints what the tower is really called. Bolahem is a small town in the Argent Mountains east of Demacia. This is where Veigar got his story, with the entire story being written as a comedy. I mean, Veigar's story is quite tragic. He was a talented Yordle wizard who got kidnapped by Mordekaiser, after which he got tortured so bad his heart turned towards the dark side. Of course, Veigar is still a Yordle, and so even though he is
I remember this, and Veigar's story is pretty interesting because he keeps on trying to do bad things, but he always ends up doing things that are good by accident. He's like a comedic relief villain where he keeps on thinking he's the ultimate evil and trying to be the ultimate evil, but everything he does just benefits everyone else. It's the funniest shit ever. Oh fuck, do you remember the WoW mount girl? She made a Craigslist post wanting some mount for WoW, and her post literally said, if you purchase this mount, then you can mount me. I actually don't. I never heard about that story. That didn't reach us down here.
Dark, he is also whimsical. And so while he is trying to be evil, it's really hard for him. And so in this story, the villagers of Bolham marched onto his tower, and they demanded to know if he was responsible for cursing their stuff. Being the greatest evil mastermind, Veigar denied innocence, but he also denied that he cursed their fields. He was a powerful mage in a reign of terror, but he did not do evil things to them. Regardless, the point is, should we be able to visit the Argent Mountains in the MMO? Because that entire area is filled with dragons and mage nations. Should we roam around, just keep in mind that there should be the chance to also find Veigar's tower. And let me tell you, that's probably gonna be one hell of an encounter. Which brings us to number 5, which is gonna be the last place on this list. At least in this video. And that is...
Man, I would be looking forward to exploring the Freljord. If I'm being honest with you, I'd probably just stick in that zone the entire time. It's one of my favorite described zones. And I'd be very disappointed if they did it wrong.
The treasury of Grubgreg the Hideous. Once upon a time, as Ornn was minding his business, Grubgreg marched into his forge. This was Grubgreg the Hideous, who was also one of the oldest trolls in the world. The story described his chest hair being so long it tangled in his toes. This made him trip very often, which is why his nose was broken all the time. Anyway, it turns out Grubgreg also owned a lot of valuable things. And so he asked Ornn to build him a door that would keep his treasure safe. At first, Ornn...
The door that became Brom's shield, if I remember correctly.
Refused, but Grubgreg also refused to leave the forge. And so naturally, this ended with a drinking contest. Whoever chucked a keg of troll meat first would win. Should Grubgreg win, he would get the door. Should Ornn win, Grubgreg would leave. But of course, Grubgreg was a troll, and trolls cheat. He sneakily put a piece of true ice into Ornn's keg, which perpetually melted. And so Grubgreg won. In return, Ornn did keep his promise. He built him the door that would keep his treasure safe from all thieves. It would be a door so good, it would stand longer than the mountain it was on, just as Grubgreg wanted it. However, eventually Grubgreg realized there was no way to open the door. He couldn't get in. And that was because Grubgreg himself was a thief. He didn't steal Ornn's gold, but he stole his time. And well, many years went by until we get to Brom's story.
Yeah, there we go.
The part that was shown in his original teaser. There, while he was fighting dragons and saving goats, he climbed a mountain where he heard the cries of a troll boy who fell into a cave. The cave was protected by doors.
I just can't figure out how the roles and classes will work. You know what? I've got the same problem, Dubba, because they've got all the lore built up, right? They've got all the right ways to do lore. They've got all the big stories that they can lean into, and all the details are kind of already fleshed out for them. When it comes to class design, that's where things are going to get interesting. Like, I don't think it's going to let you just pick one of the characters from the game. I think they're going to make you pick, like, choose your own character and build them up and shit. But I wonder how well that's going to work and how they're going to keep that from being law-breaking within itself. That's going to be a difficult one.
Or that Brom couldn't break. But he could break the mountain, and so he literally punched his way through. After which,
what a lad.
Collapsing, he picked up the door and shielded the boy from the rubble. That's the story of how Brom got his shield. But more importantly, technically, even though a big chunk of this place caved in, the treasury of Grubgreg should still be somewhere out there in the Freljord. And it would be really cool if, as you just roam around the mountains, you just randomly find treasure.
You know what I think would be really, really funny? And I think would be a great troll on the game, is if you go through like an entire raid or something, looking for Grubgreg's treasure, you finally find it, and it's just a pile of rotting meat. Or like rotted frozen meat. Because it turns out he wasn't collecting like gold or silver or anything like that. Like, he just had an obsession with food all the time. And it's just like a pile of shit. I think that would be the funniest thing ever. I hope they put stupid shit like that in this game. Can't they use the roles in class from leagues as a baseline? They could, skirmish. They could potentially do that, but think about how interesting would that really be? How interesting would it really be if they just kept on doing things like that? If they just rehashed the same thing over and over again instead of building out new abilities that you would get baseline as a literal nobody playing this game, as opposed to here you get this legendary warrior skills. Now maybe they could intertwine some of the skills into like ultimates or something like that. But I think if they just rehash skills from League, I think that would get old fast for people.
And there you have it, 5 unconventional places found on Runeterra. I'll be honest, I could probably keep going for a lot longer, but it's been a while since I've made a proper Riot MMO video, and so I can feel I'm not as good as I used to be. Normally I would turn this into 10 places and it would be turned into an hour-long video. But times change, TikTok is a thing, and so don't be surprised if I make like 50 shorts with interesting places.
Can I be honest? Okay, that was a good video, that was decent. Can I be honest though? I think one of the best things that they could probably do is tie classes to a quest. Right? Make you earn the class that you want to play. Like, it's not just something given to you on a platter. Like, maybe you can select the baseline of certain choices with a class. You tie it to a quest, and it becomes a challenge to get the thing you actually want. Have you tried New World? I used to play the shit out of New World. I was there since the beginning. I watched that game rise and fall. That game's just based around weapons. There's no classes there. Like Elsword or Grand Chase. Yeah, maybe. I'm caught between, I want them to take really, really good ideas from old MMORPGs, but I also don't want them to rehash ideas that have already been done before. Like Final Fantasy XIV. I don't want them to just rehash the same idea. I want them to do it in like at least give it a unique and interesting twist, as opposed to being the same thing done over and over again. I think it would be concerning if they just did the same thing we've already been seeing for the last 2 decades.